All right. Well, um, all right. I think it's time now. So it's 8 o'clock, and we're going to go ahead and get started. My name's John Teravskis. Uh, I'm operations manager here at WGR. I'm a CPESC and a QSP QSD, and we are so happy to have each one of you here with us this morning for Stormwater Awareness Week. And we got another good day of really good training happening today. As we mentioned, we were talking just earlier, we have the keynote session that is up and running, and you guys will definitely want to watch that. Today we're featuring Brandon Rosenboom with the State Water Resources Control Board. He is the lead person over the construction general permit, and he and I are talking in this interview about the permit, things that are working with the permit, things are not working so well with the permit, and then also what we can expect here in the near future with a new with a permit renewal and some of the features that we might expect to see in that. So you definitely won't want to miss that keynote. And you can watch it anytime today, or it'll be there for some time to come, probably almost till next year's event. So, but you definitely want to check that out. Now I want to introduce to you Mike Lewis. He's our host today. And Mike, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell them, everybody.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, good morning. I'm Mike Lewis. I'm one of the QSPs in the office, and so we're really privileged to be able to take you on a job site, even though it's virtual. It's something that we get to see all the time, and so it's our thought process and how our training goes is we like the kick the can mentality, where it's nice to talk about and to show you a screenshot of something, but it's also a lot better to take you out into the field and let you see how it practically works and what it looks like.
Right, and what we're going to do today is we have like 8 video clips that we're going to show you, I think from actually 3 sites, right, Mike?
Yes, 3 sites.
Yeah, and we really were tempted to do this in the field on live Zoom, but we chickened out, realizing that if we lose internet coverage even for a moment, we lose our entire class. It just ends. So we're like, I don't think we trust our internet that well to do that. But so we just last week, these are very fresh video clips. Last week, we went on to these job sites and took some pictures. So today, Mike, what we're going to have them do is they're going to be the QSPs, right? What do you want them looking for?
Yes. Yeah, I want you to just notice whatever we happen to be walking through, whether it's looks like it's effective, whether it's installed correctly, whether it's installed not correctly, just kind of an overall view of what you would think if you looked at this job site. We want your opinion.
Right, and just looking at the names of the people that have joined us this morning, I can tell, I know some of you, I know we have some of you are QSPs, and you do this every day. Some of you have joined us because you work with municipalities and you go to job sites for another reason, not necessarily as a QSP, but as a municipal inspector. So we want you looking at it even from your perspective. So, but today in particular, we're going to put on our QSP hat, and we're going to be filling out a form or going through a form. Let me share that screen. Now, all right, here we go. And so you can see here that we have our CASCA monitoring form. Now, Mike, we're not using this much more these days, right? What are we actually using when we go in the field?
No, we've taken this form and we have created our own app that we have on our phones, so that we go out in the field and we follow this through with our app, and we're able to take pictures and upload pictures into the app. And so instead of just a paper form, because the paper form doesn't have a place for photos, so we decided that we wanted, the proof is in the pudding. So it's a lot easier to have a photo uploaded, especially when you're sharing it with a contractor or an owner or someone in the field to be able to say, here's what the issue is, and here's a photo of it. So we also have the ability to email that report to the owner and to the contractor, whoever happens to be there, so they can get a real-time picture of what we're talking about when we are when we're critiquing the site.
Right, right. So today we're going just to simplify things, use the paper form, but as Mike said, we now have put this electronically, and we've gone the electronic route for various reasons. In fact, I see Gail Ziegler is on our phone call. Mike and I remember Gail was actually, she may not know it, but she was instrumental in actually converting, even revolutionizing the way WGR does their stormwater inspections, because she was a municipal inspector and called one of our inspectors to task. Remember, Mike, about how we were just saying that all the BMPs looked good, but the permit actually says that you have to evaluate all of the different specific BMPs and give an evaluation on those individual BMPs. You can't just say everything looks great, even if it does. In my head, you know, we weren't lying. It did look great, but you actually have to give an evaluation. And so that's one of the reasons we've gone to these electronic forms, is now we will actually force the inspector to go through each type of BMP. What are some of the types of BMPs we evaluate, Mike? Are you there, Mike?
There is the great thing about this is that we've followed this form exactly over into our app, and so it works well for us to just kind of walk through. So it's very, you know, the paper form is, you know, just checking the boxes. But like I say, we've got this app, and so it works a lot better because we can upload a picture. But the first thing that, you know, you go through when you go on these particular sites is you just want to take an overall look at the job site and see if there's any problems. One of the main things that I look at when I first show up is something that a state inspector talked to me about. He said that one of the red flags for the state inspectors is track out controls. And so if he said when he drives by, if he sees the track out as an issue, of course he just stops, because he thinks if you can't control track out, you can't control the job site. And so that's one thing that I always get to talk to people about is track out.
Yeah. And so what we're going to do is take a look at these specific BMPs. And so as Mike mentioned, we're going to take a look at track out first. And so we have to list that out specifically on this form. But if you're using another form or electronic version of the form, then you want to make sure that you are covering each one of these. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to share a different screen, and we're going to go look at the video clip of the track out control. So let me just bear with me. Let me pull that screen up. All right, here we go.
And so here we're standing here looking at some track out. They've got some pretty good controls. They've got a water truck that comes by that, you know, blows the stuff back in. There's a lot of traffic coming in and out. So what do you think of these track out controls? You think they're effective?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going to stop that video there. Here's a good picture for you. All right, you're the QSPs, and you might not have known this, but you got to wake up. Today is an interactive class. So you can put into your text chat, you can send us a chat as far as what you think of this, or you can go ahead and unmute yourself and let us know what you think of that. So I'm going to open up my chat here, so I can see your comments. All right, there's, hold on. Here. So yeah, Jennifer, no. Well, can you be a little more specific? Yeah, I agree. No is probably a good answer, but what are we concerned about with this track out control? Worthless attempt. Oh, why don't you
Well,
tell us the way you really feel about it?
okay. It looks like they tried to put a track out control in, but they haven't been maintaining it. In the picture that we could see right now, you can see water puddles right next to the roadway. They're muddy. The rock doesn't cover all of it. You could also see the shoulder when they're pulling out, that some of the trucks cut the corner and they drive down the shoulder. So I would add more rock next to the shoulder. And the fact that you're getting mud clumps and dirt on the roadway shows that your BMP is not working.
Right, right, and they're trying to also, I guess, control dust. Uh, Mike, you were out there, obviously. How come it's so wet?
Actually, what's interesting about this site is that you would first look at this site and you would think, oh, this is a huge failure. Look at this soil, the sediment coming out, the rocks impacted. But actually, on the flip side, this has probably a mile and a half, maybe 2 miles of asphalt leaving this site going down the road, which is TC2 track out control. So what they actually have is they have a water truck that goes by about every 20 minutes and blows all this back in. So, and they have a sweeper out there as well. So this particular time we had just arrived shortly after the truck had gone through and blown everything back in, only for the trucks to drive out immediately. So even though this doesn't look like it's the greatest of track out controls, they actually are doing a really good job. But if this was a typical site, which there are sites that look like this, then you're right, it would be a total failure, and they would need to definitely install some more BMPs farther in the sediment to be able to control it. And maintenance is always a big issue.
Right, and having it super wet out here is going to make sweeping very challenging. It's basically going to smear it on the surface and not allow it to be removed. So they would, I would, if I was the QSP on this site, I would probably want to ask them to limit the amount of moisture they're putting onto the street. Again, Mike said that this is a very unique situation. You know, this looks like a public road that's going to, you know, that is definitely a problem from not only CGP, but also municipal ordinances. This is kind of a unique situation. But the water would be a real problem with sweeping. But that brings up a good point. Track out control devices are never 100%, are they, Mike?
No, there's, to be honest with you, we have yet to see a track out that's 100% effective. They do, you know, they try to follow TC1 out of Casca. They try to implement the TC1 protocols. Sometimes there's no fabric underneath, but too often in this situation, they happen to be hauling out, you know, probably 30 trucks of soil out this gate into another gate. And so it was just constant. So anytime that there's this kind of a situation with track out, they're going to definitely need, you know, to constantly maintain it, to constantly work on it. But the rock, like you say, I did see one comment that the rock was kind of small. It's supposed to be anything over 3. We usually recommend 4 to 6. This had been compacted quite a bit by the previous 2 or 3 days of trucking. So you're right. Yeah. This just needs constant maintenance.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of these comments. I see some really good ones. I see the presence of chunks of dirt once observed. I would require tracking sweeping within 1 hour. Yes, definitely, Mel. That's what we're saying. Is especially a project like this, there's a lot of truck movement happening here. And as Mike was saying, is considering the amount of traffic they're getting, this is actually not too bad. But it's not too good either. Let's be clear, it's not too good either. So yeah, definitely sweeping needs to be more active. And then I saw another comment here. It looks like there's clay in the dirt, so I wouldn't recommend wetting it down. I agree 100% with you, because it will make the dirt stick to the tires more, and it will also entrain it, I believe, more in the asphalt. And once it does dry out, it's going to be a disaster. So I agree with you, absolutely agree with you. In fact, if it does get smeared and dry out, the only way they're going to clean that off is probably with a water truck. Fortunately, this is out in very rural area, and there are no MS4 drains anywhere near here. So you know, the water quality risk isn't too big right here. Let's see. Let's take some more comments. Track out control not maintained, and is possible not deep enough into the property. Yeah, we can't see too much of it. We're just seeing there. Mike, this was all of 50 feet, it looks like to me. I'm familiar with this site too, right? I think there's a lag between you and I.
Yeah, this particular site is kind of unique because they were traveling only about maybe 200 yards and going back into the property. So the track out was really in a small window, and like I said, with their water truck, they thought the best scenario here was to blow everything back in constantly.
Yeah, yeah. So to comment on, let's see, who said about the rock size? I would agree. That rock needs a little bit of attention. I think it's because of the traffic they've gotten. It's been pounded down. And I think your observation's probably correct that it wasn't deep enough because the rock was layers maybe too shallow or too thin, not deep enough. It was able to be just pounded down into the subsurface below. I can't tell from this angle if they put geotextile under it, but it could be symptomatic. What we're seeing is symptomatic of a track out control that looked good initially, but wasn't built to specifications. Let's see, let's take some other of these. Yeah, I agree with Gail's comment. What about hose wash or drive-through water basins? Paul, I'm not a big fan of that. Especially as people have been noticing, this may be more clayey soils. I've seen wheel wash basically cause more problems than help. But there are times that I don't say I'll never use them, but there's times and places to use them. I think this is more maybe a maintenance issue and maybe possibly not correctly installed. Joseph says addition of rumble plates. Yes, that could help. That could help. In one of my earlier talks this week, I showed a product that I'm really starting to advocate to SWIP riders and in riding SWIPs and to contractors is to use those portable track out control mats. There's like 3 or 4, maybe even probably more manufacturers that make them. One of them is Bob's, and they're very portable, they're very durable, and they do a very good job of undulating the tires. So I would consider maybe adding that to this. The other thing is they're really easy to maintain. Let's see, what else we have here? We're getting great comments from you guys, doing awesome. Does not appear to be installed with 12-inch excavation and geotextile. I agree with you, Mel. I agree. Rocks may not be uniform size. Too many fines. Yeah, I was kind of noticing that too, Cliff. It seems like there's some bigger stuff, but there seems to be a lot of smaller stuff too, and that might be causing some of the reason it's compacted together. All right, very good messages, very good messages. So let's go back to our form here, and we're going to fill that out. And let me share that screen. All right, let's see. right here. All right, so track out control. I think we're going to say needs maintenance and is not effective. Need to sweep roadway. Consider alternate design or reinstallation. All right, so that's our assessment of track out control. All right, Mike, we're going to now move to another side. We're going to look at perimeter control. When we're looking at perimeter controls, as I'm bringing up this video, Mike, talk to folks about what you need to look at when you're thinking perimeter control.
Well, what's interesting is that a lot of times when I go out, perimeter control is the contractor will conceptualize the meaning of perimeter control as, oh, I just need to have things all the way around the perimeter, kind of like his footprint of his construction site. So perimeter controls are, can be a couple of things. They can be used. Sediment controls / perimeter controls can be the same thing, but a perimeter control is a control that is either going to disallow sediment from leaving the site or control runoff from coming on the site. So it's got to be effective. Often we run into perimeter controls as I see probably the biggest thing I see all the time is fiber roll. Fiber roll is used as a perimeter control. It's not completely effective in some situations, especially if you've got slopes and things.
Where it's not
we get some pushback
correctly
about the cost. It's always about cost. And so we talk about cost of fiber roll versus silt fence. And I always think when I talk to the contractor, I'm like, well, if you use silt fence as a perimeter control, you've got 3 feet of safety net here, versus if you use fiber roll, you only have got maybe 5 inches if it's keyed in correctly. The biggest problem with most of the perimeter control I see is that it's not installed. Even if it's silt fence, it might be staked in and just down to the dirt. It won't be trenched. Or if it's fiber roll, it may be staked. It might. The majority of the time, I don't see it trenched. But those are just a few of the issues that we have. But perimeter controls are required by the permit, so they have to be in place. I have seen one contractor told me that his ESA fencing was his perimeter control, and I tried to share with him, well, that wasn't a very effective control. So not just have a control, but be an effective control. So that's
Right.
what I look for.
Right, and effective is key word. So let's go out to a job site. We're actually going to look at 3 job sites as we do this. So let's look at each one of these.
Okay. Hello, I'm Mike with WGR, and so we wanted to take you out to a physical site so we could just have an idea of what we're talking about when we're talking about this of course looks like active construction, and so we're talking about sediment controls and erosion controls, and as you can see, they've got some sediment controls in place as well as perimeter controls and on this active job site. So as we walk down through here, we can kind of look and see kind of what they've done. This is a bit of kind of double duty, because what we have here is what we call curb cutback. And so when you have a hardscape and you have the soil cut down below the soil 4 to 6 inches, well, water can't go up and over the curb. So that BMP of curb cutback is really a good process, and it's inexpensive because it's already there. You don't have to double duty. And so putting this fiber roll here is what they've chosen to do here, but it's not necessarily something that you would need to do. It's kind of a double duty, as we say. So anyway, so as we come down from here, it's active, and then as you come down here farther, there's a great erosion control that they have in this blanket. So they have this fabric blanket as erosion control. And so a lot of people get confused and they think that an erosion control is this fiber roll, Well, the fiber roll actually is for catching sediment. It doesn't do much more than that, and so it doesn't really filter anything. It just captures sediment, so that's really good. But erosion control is what we want to stop first, because if we can stop erosion control, by the time it gets to sediment control, then the sediment control can do its job pretty easily. So this is a great solution for erosion control, because when it starts to rain, you can look and see that the site is relatively flat. So there's only a gentle slope here, and where the project slopes, they've got this fabric here to control erosion, which is great. And then here, next to it is the sediment controls, which is fantastic too. So he's really done a good job on this site. And so we can look around and see that it's pretty active, and there's traffic back and forth through there. One of the things that you always want to consider when you have this fabric down is that come winter time and it starts to rain, you know, is there going to be tracking of mud back and forth out of these houses? And so you can see he's run some filter up into the house, into the garage, to offset the fact that there's mud. And a lot of times that doesn't take place. A lot of times you'll just see this fabric on the outside of the property, and you won't see a clear path to get in and out of the structure. And so you'll get a lot of sediment coming out just with foot traffic, and especially if you get a great all, needing to set sheetrock inside of the home or something like that. So this is a fantastic example of sediment control and erosion control. He's done a real good job. This fiber roll is...
All right, we're going to stop there. I'm going to hold that frame, and we're going to probably, what I'd like to do is go back and take a look at it. So again, type in your evaluations here. So yes, the question there, are the sites we are evaluating today assumed to have CGP coverage? And yes, they all do. They all have to be complying with the CGP here, as well as municipal code. So there, this site is obviously trying to do the right thing. They've done some things quite well. They have some control over their site, but I imagine as QSP inspectors, we probably can point out a few things they need to do better. I caught a few things as we were walking the site. Did any of you say thing? And I agree with you, Dale. It generally looks good. I would give them probably a B plus for some of it. Now there are some areas that need more attention, definitely. But let's in fact what I want to do is back this video up to the beginning, and let's take a look at what it looked like at the beginning. I noticed some things. You notice right over Mike's shoulder there. Now, Mike brought up a good point. It's double duty BMPs. So, in fact, if you look right over his shoulder, the fiber roll's been pulled away, but there's still a good amount of curb cut back there. What do you think of that? Let's see, I see some comments. In the very beginning, in the background, you could see yes. They might be driving. It looks like they intentionally moved the fiber roll. So Jennifer, I think almost every site gets somebody that drives over it. But it actually looks like they moved it probably to bring in this material here. So it's looking like they were taking care not to damage it, and they have curb cut back right there. So I would, say that probably they were intending to do the right thing. The pad is higher than the curb, and large storm flows could overtop. So the secure fiber roll is a good measure to ensure no materials leave the site. Yeah, Tricia, I agree with you there. The other thing that we talk to a lot of people about is curb cutbacks. The problem with them is that they don't look like BMPs. And that's a problem for two people. It's the problem for the people working on this site, because they're not identifying that as a BMP, and so they're not thinking about it. And so if they need a ramp or a wheelbarrow or or they get a little sloppy with the dirt, they're not consciously thinking that, hey, I need to maintain 4 to 6 inches, not without at least a lot of training and reminders of that, and maybe someone keeping on them about that. So the good thing about fiber rolls is, even if you can't maintain the 4 to 6 inches, they could have the fiber roll there and is visible. All right. Steve, still acceptable. The fiber roll, especially at home builders, is typically window dressing. Yeah, and curb cutback is the primary BMP. Paul's saying I would prefer gravel bags for 2 reasons. Potentially a lot of people walking on the fiber rolls. I agree with you, Paul, especially in certain places. Gravel bags or compost socks that don't have to be staked down could be dragged away for the moment that you need to move in some material, like you see behind Mike. Mike, you were out there, so what are you thinking of these comments?
Yeah, I think the comment's legit. I think too often we start to look at a site as a QSP, and of course I'm sitting there in dry weather, and we're thinking, okay, what is the liability here in dry weather? Mostly it's wind at this time for dust control, but the contractor has gone through his SWIP and he is looking at what was put in there. So he is trying to do a good job. He is doing better than most. Yes, one of the things that I saw, one of your comments, was that the slope, so the houses are always elevated about, I don't know, 2 feet above the sidewalk, and they slope down. And so, but the majority of the construction sites we see, they don't use fabric. And if they do use fabric, it's a little too late. This particular one, we call this fiber roll in this situation window dressing, because water doesn't care if it hits a curb, fiber roll, silt fence, it just stops. So when you look at how, if the soil is 4 to 6 inches below the curb, it's usually pretty effective. It's definitely as effective as fiber roll, 100%. It's not effective as silt fence, but yeah, you have to look at the site and you have to start thinking, winter's coming, you're going to start getting rain, so what do you need to do? And all contractors, their pushback is the site is active. If it's active, then we say, after 14 days of inactivity, you need to cover the soil with something temporary. But we're trying just to make sure that sediment doesn't leave the site. So this particular job, he's doing a really good job of being kind of a preemptive strike. He told me that he waits until he gets all his product set in with grade-alls before he puts the fabric down so that it isn't too destroyed. And having fabric up to the garage is usually, it never happens. It's usually a 2x12 laid down, and people step on it or off it and make a big mess. So yeah, they're doing a good job overall of what I see on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. And even their installation of the fiber roll looks pretty good. You see the staking. Staking's always a concern for safety. They do have them angled a little bit. And they did a pretty good job of overlapping them. This is one of the weak spots I saw in the video. It could have been a little bit better, but we saw other good examples of that. Also notice that they have the fabric up here, but in here, this area and even behind us was still fairly vegetated. So they haven't, they preserved existing vegetation to the best they could. So let's see, there was one more section up here. Yeah, you can see they've really tried to, right there you can see other connections. They really did try to do it. I would definitely give this site a B+. Contractor needs to start watching for rills starting above the fabric once rain starts. Yes, you'll need to watch that. And probably once the rains start, add maybe a little bit more of erosion protection. Of course, right now we're talking about sediment control, in particular perimeter control, but yeah, maybe some hand scattered straw could help their program quite a bit above the fabric, or just another row of geotextile or even plastic that you lay down just for the rain event, just to cover that area. And what that does a nice job of is keeping that from being muddy then. So yeah, let's go back to our form. Let's stop here. Just in the interest of time, I'm kind of gauging time. I think we have maybe more videos than we have time for, but let's go back to our inspection form. Let me share that screen. All right, here it is. So the next thing we need to do is perimeter controls. Again, you need to call out the BMPs. You can't just say everything looks great. You know, you need to call them out. Perimeter sediment controls. I would say generally looks good. Maybe reinstall all areas that were temporarily removed. So something like that. All right. I think we have time to look at one more perimeter control. Let's take a look at a silt fence. And let me bring that up. Let's see also, let me check our chat, see what comments we're getting. All right, curb cutback is effective, spend money that was waste on fiber roll. Yeah, we here at WGR tend to agree with you, Chris. We really advocate curb cutback. You just need to know what it comes with. It comes with a certain amount of baggage. One is some municipal inspectors or even state water board inspectors, they don't like it and they will hassle you about it, about not having a perimeter control there. So sometimes it might be just easier to lay down the fiber roll than fight those battles. But we advocate curb cutback. We like it. We think it works. But you need the other baggage is it needs a certain amount of education on site so people know what it's for and what it's doing and the importance of maintaining it. Is the fabric installed correctly? I believe it needs to have intimate soil contact via staples. I didn't look specifically in those video clips, but it looked fairly okay with me. Oh, as far as being trenched at the top, yes, but I think, remember, this is dry season and it's a very active site. What I would do if I was their QSP and was really concerned about that strip of dirt in between the house and the geotextile is I would lay down a sheet of visqueen and have it overlap and anchor it down with sandbags or something. And I would just do that temporarily during the rain event. And that would really work well. And then we wouldn't be worried about flows undermining the fabric. All right, let's take a look at another video clip here of fiber roll. And all right, do this here. All right. Or I'm sorry, not fiber roll, silt fence. Here we go.
Okay, here we are, and we're more of a kind of an industrial site, so we wanted to give you maybe some overall things. We've got some track out controls, we've got some silt fence, we've got some material storage, dumpster, porta potty. So let's kind of just walk around and take a look and see what you think.
All right, we're gonna hold the video right there and we'll back it up a little bit. The only thing we're evaluating this time is silt fence. So there's a few things you need to know about silt fence installation, right, Mike? Such as the stakes. So what do we need to see about the stakes?
One of the things that is really done well here is that the silt fence is trenched in. It's kind of odd to say, but I have seen maybe 3 or 4 job sites where you have to ask yourself, okay, what are you trying to control? You're trying to control things on site or off site, which is the greater issue. And this particular one, of course, they're trying to control something from coming off site. So you see the stakes are on the back side. I have been in 3 or 4 situations where the stakes were on the wrong side. And I'm like, well, once the sediment starts to pile up here, it's going to push the staples out and they're going to fall. It's going to be not effective. So, but one of the things that you want to do always with silt fence is that I go around and I kick the bottom of it with my boot, as I'm walking around, just to make sure that it's installed. Because if it's not installed with the fabric down in and sediment built up on top, then it's not going to be effective no matter what. It's going to kind of blow by. But this particular one, and I've seen more of it lately. I actually watched a job on a levee we were doing where a company came out, a BMP installation company came out, and they were installing silt fence. And just as fast as they could drive the tractor, it was trenching, putting it in, and then they were coming right behind with another tractor covering it up. So it was pretty effective, and they did it pretty quickly. So I was quite amazed. But this particular site, they had just a small trencher out there, and they trenched it in and put it in, staked it in. It's really done well, and it's around the entire site. The site is flat, so it's way more effective than probably maybe they need, but it's great.
Yeah. In fact, Dale commented stakes are on the sensible side. I like that. I like that choice of words. And the fence looks buried properly. Yeah. I would give this installation an A. Now, do they really need silt fence? Well, there's reasons we pick silt fence other than sediment load. Typically, we teach in our classes that we will pick a fiber roll or silt fence based on the sediment load. As you can tell, this is a very flat site. It's in the Central Valley. There's really not a lot of expected sediment load. But what the silt fence is doing here, in addition to a perimeter control, it's also delineation of the project. And it's also helping us maintain EC2, which is preservation of existing vegetation. So it's delineating out the project better than fiber rolls would, because fiber rolls tend to get overlooked. These vehicles might not see it when they're backing into their site, overrun, roll them over. The silt fence will provide a little bit of a better delineation. And so I will many times call out silt fence. Another thing we see and hear a lot about, especially when in a SWIP, I call out silt fence on a job like this, the contractor will invariably say, why are we using silt fence? Why can't we go with fiber roll? And I'll give them all the reasons, and they'll go, well, no, I don't want to spend that kind of money on silt fence. I'd rather, fiber roll's cheaper. Well, no, it's not actually. It's not cheaper when it's installed correctly. Both of them need to be keyed in. Both of them need to have stakes pounded. In fact, the silt fence stakes are farther apart than the fiber roll stakes are. But fiber roll runs anywhere from $25 to $40 for a 25-foot span of it. At Home Depot. In fact, if you don't believe me, just Google it right now. Home Depot, look up price for fiber roll. Silt fence is about $20 to $25 for a 100-foot length. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I just checked before we did this video so that I would have an idea. And they have, I went to Whitecap, and Whitecap sells a 100-foot roll of silt fence for $32. And they sell 25-foot length of fiber roll for $48.
Yeah, so next time someone says fiber roll's cheaper, that's not actually the truth, unless they don't intend to install it correctly. Then there's no cheaper BMP than fiber roll just laid on the ground. That is the cheapest. Of course, that's not a BMP. All right, any comments? Let's go back to our form. And Mike, are you seeing that form? I think you probably can. So we're going to say, we're just going to pretend this is the same site. Obviously, it's not. Fiber rolls generally look good. Silt fence is properly installed and does not need maintenance. All right, so you got the idea how we're doing this. All right, any other things? All right, no comments right now. Good. So, all right, let me check our time here. We got about 15 minutes left. I think maybe what we'll do now, Mike, is move over to, let's look at the porta potty and dumpster. Let's move to some of the staging areas.
Okay. Also, here's a perfect example of something that you need to look at. This is a portable toilet. It's on an impervious site. It's got a secondary containment, as you can see. But where is it? So one of the things you always want to think about is that part of CASCA's, really the only thing they say about a portable toilet is that you probably should have it at least 50 feet away from a storm drain. But realistically, is it sitting out here in the street the best place to put it? So your opinion will be needed on that. We can turn and kind of look here too. So we've got a trash dumpster. So here we have a trash dumpster. And so this is exactly what happens on any particular job site. Guys come over and they throw their stuff in. Sometimes it makes it, sometimes it doesn't. Most of the times we know that most of these trash dumpsters, if not all of them, leak. So even if this was a dumpster that had a cover, then we would have to really think about even those metal covers, they all leak because they're just a metal box with doors on them. And so this is what you have. So it's one of those things that you always have to talk to people about, is that, you know, maintenance, always maintaining around the dumpster, always having the ability to be able to cover it, especially if a rain comes in. And now the water board doesn't recognize the rain year as what used to be October to May. Now it's year round because they say that a rainstorm can happen anytime. So in the QSP world, this is an item that we always need to look at. We always need to be conscious of. We always need to be talking to the contractor. And so when we come out here, I tell the contractor too often is we're not the stormwater police. We're here to help you be a success. And so that's very, for them, that kind of lets the air out of their sail as far as them being aggressive, thinking that we're coming after them. And so that's kind of how we, I think that's kind of what you want to do as a QSP, is that you want to come out and tell them how to be a success for the site.
All right, let's stop there. All right, talk to me, folks. What do you see? All right, a comment here about the portable toilet. If they move the portable toilet up onto one of the dirt lots, it may contain spills better than being placed in the street. In fact, I know we got a lot of municipal folks on our call right now. In fact, Jeff Condit, you haven't weighed in yet. Calling you out. You're a municipal person. What do you think about toilets in the street? Or any of you municipal inspectors? I believe that's not per most of your ordinances. So let's see what you got here. All right. One, trash dumpster has objects thrown over the top, needs to be emptied. Yes. Well, we didn't get a good look at it, but I think we did see some stuff hanging out. Yeah. Lacks a cover. Of course, it doesn't need to be covered yet, as you're saying, at the end of each day, and then during rains at all time. You got it absolutely right. Porta potty, danger of tipping over next to parking. Yeah, that's one of the problems of being in the street. Needs to be moved, but ensure moved to an area that is not slanted. All right, need to clean up debris that was missed when dumping in the dumpster. Doesn't it have to be anchored down? Well, it needs to be secure. It doesn't necessarily need to be chained to a tree or something like that. Oh, there's Jeff. I think it would be preferable to move the portable toilet up onto one of the dirt lots, a flat space. Yes, yes, definitely. Let's take a look at this. How about the containment? Mike, talk to us about what you look for when you're looking at how porta potties are maintained.
Well, this is interesting. So the portable toilet companies bring out these portable toilets that have this trailer, and they everybody kind of considers, okay, that's secondary containment. And I'm like, well, unless the porta potty has a hole in the bottom of it, what's it going to contain except stormwater or dirt or something off the site? So what I usually talk about with contractors, and I said, what's an easy solution is, one, you don't want it in the street. Two, if you can get it in the dirt. But the best thing to do is just throw a rope over it and stake it down on both sides, because I've seen them knocked over. Also, I always open the door and look inside, because you want to make sure that they're clean. That's part of the process of filling out our app is the toilet maintained. And some job sites they are, and some job sites they aren't. So I always want to point that out. But yes, definitely not on an impervious area, not anywhere near a gutter or a storm drain. And the comment about put it out back up into the soil is correct. That's where you want to put it. And that way you can stake it down and make it relatively secure. One of the things that we found out, because I got a little pushback on a job from a city inspector, municipal inspector, about the blue product that was all over the ground from the portable toilet company just cleaning out the toilet. And I guess years and years ago it used to be formaldehyde. It's not anymore. So now it's not a product that, if it does get spilled, they don't consider it hazardous. So it's just FYI. But still, you always want to have a look at it. And then if you shift over to the dumpster, this is always a bone of contention on any job site, is that one, they're like, well, it's used every day and we don't want to cover it. And I point out, well, this is what you signed up for. It's supposed to be covered at the end of every day, and especially prior to a rain event. All these dumpsters leak. If you get one even that has a lid, it doesn't make any difference. They're just a big metal box that's not, that doesn't have, a seal on them. So they all leak. So the concern, of course, as a QSP is that if it rains, what's inside the dumpster that's going to, leak out? And is that going to become non-visible pollutant sampling down the road? A number of things. But yeah, it's constant maintenance, because you have subcontractors on jobs who use the dumpster as well. So they're not as concerned about, how clean and how clutter-free it is.
Okay. At this site, I think I would give them a grade, if I was grading them, maybe of a C+. Maybe that's generous. You could tell they need more housekeeping. Just by the lack of sweeping, or maybe attention to detailed sweeping, you can see that all around and underneath this dumpster has gathered debris that should definitely need to be cleaned up. And probably the dumpster does need to be emptied, looking at this. So that's not so good. And then, of course, we have this right here, this washout. We're not going to have time to get to this site's washout, which is right kind of in between these two homes, back on the lot. But you can tell they're obviously in the vertical stage.
Well,
probably
I always look at washout controls. What do they have? A lot of the times they'll have a kiddie pool.
Yeah.
They'll have, sometimes they'll have a 40-yard or a 20-yard. I guess it's about a 20-yard containment for washout. But mostly sites like this that do stucco and do small amounts of cement. I mean, they're of course doing sidewalks and driveways, but they'll have, like these tubs they have on this particular site. I always look to see where they are. Are they, do they still have water in them? Are they close to the limit? Are they going to overflow if it was to rain? So washout is always a concern. Usually there's slurry on the outside because there's not so much care taken in dumping a bucket that you're putting inside it. So that's always a concern. And being close to the street is a concern, because you're going to get higher pH in any kind of stormwater that flows off of it. So
right. And this is probably being used more for tile work and mortar. Since they're in the vertical stage, they're probably not doing a lot of concrete work right now. So maybe a little bit of stucco stuff, but it's probably mostly interior work, and this is probably where they're washing out tools or doing some cleaning, that type of thing. This is a little too precarious to me. It's not a horrible BMP. you don't see a lot of problems right there. But I think I would prefer to have some plastic sheeting laid down underneath that, just to catch some of the drips and that type of stuff. But again, I think I'd give this a C plus. Not horrible, but needs some attention, definitely. All right. Well, just in the interest of time, because I only have about 5 minutes left, Mike, we're going to, what I would do on the form is call out housekeeping and I say it needs sweeping, dumpster needs to be emptied, porta potty needs to be moved. And probably, well, I don't know if I have enough detail right now to comment on the washout, but I might say something about that too. All right, Mike, let's talk about final stabilization. As a project is nearing the end, it needs to be stabilized. So let's show this last video here of NOT, we're right here, of about a section of the site that's nearing completion.
Wanted to walk you through NOT, so trying to get out of the permit, because that's always a question. That's always a question the contractor has. What's it going to take for me to get an NOT? Well, this is exactly what it takes. It takes some form of permanent cover, not a temporary cover, to be able to get out of this permit. It also takes all temporary BMPs to be removed. It takes, the one confusing part of an NOT is that it says 70% coverage. Well, most of us interpret 70% coverage as, well, if I've got 10 acres of land, say, and 7 acres are covered, then the other 3 aren't, it's 70%. Well, actually, how the water board interprets it is that 70% of this site, this exposed soil, would be covered, and the other 30% would be in process. So it needs to be the fact that you've got good coverage. So this is acceptable. Bark, grass, of course. A lot of places don't allow grass much anymore. Rock that's over in there, a permanent BMP would be hydroseed. So this is what it takes. So you would come out and you would take pictures of the site. You would take photos first, then you would take the site map, and you would put the site map together with the photo locations so that the water board could take the map and look, because they're going to download the map from the SWIP that's uploaded into Smarts, and they're going to look at your map and at their map and make sure that the footprint is the same, and then they're going to want to see where your photo locations are, and they're going to line up. Also, one of the big things with a NOT now, and has been for some time, but it's been a topic that the water board has really been pushing back on, is the post-BMP standards. So what they're saying is, if you have all this pervious ground and all of a sudden you're making it impervious because you're putting homes and driveway and hardscapes and asphalt and things, what are you doing with the stormwater? So when you get to certain cities, either a city or a county will condition the site to say, okay, what are we doing with the stormwater? We're either creating a retention basin, either to the back of the subdivision, within the subdivision. They may have water features in the lawns, they may have water gardens. This could be impervious and have vaults underneath it. It could be any number of things. But when you turn in an NOT to the state, they're gonna wanna know what the post-BMP long-term maintenance plan is. So if you don't have one, they're gonna push back and say, okay, who conditioned the site? And we need to have that plan. So that's one of the things that has to happen. So NOTs seem to be pretty simple, but just make sure to always point out to the contractor, remove temporary BMPs, remove drain bags, remove porta potties, any kind of dumpsters, anything you have on site. It has to look like the contractor has left the building. And so that basically is the NOT in a nutshell.
All right, Mike, we only have about a minute left. So why don't you talk to us just a little bit about challenges in getting final stabilization and what QSPs in particular need to be looking for and talking to the contractor about. I think there's, are you there?
Yeah, now I hear you. Sorry, I lost you for a minute.
So why don't you just wrap it up, Mike?
You want me to comment on the NOT?
Yeah, just on getting final
Okay.
stabilization.
Yeah, ultimately, final stabilization, I've gone down a lot of paths with this. I've learned a lot over time with the water board and what they're requiring. Before they used to just allow hydroseed and now they want actual germination. They want to see grass growing. So you really have to think through as a QSP, how are you going to help the contractor or the owner get final stabilization quickly so that he can get out of the permit, so that you can stop doing inspections, and so that he can, stop the whole process financially. So a lot of times I used to think, oh, well, you hydroseed and we'll just wait for the winter rains and we will, the grass will start growing slowly. But then I realized over time is that, well, that's a long term. So I give them several options. Several options the water board allow is, you can cover, like, for instance, they did grass in that one area is fine, but you could cover it with bark, mulch, rock, some permanent BMP, and then you can get out of the permit right away. And like, John pointed out, and we pointed out in the video, the 70% coverage means they want 70% of the entire site coverage with the remaining 30%, in process. So that's what it's about.
That's on a square foot basis. That's not, like he said, it's not like 30% of the site we haven't done anything with.
Yeah, that's true. And so we point this out a lot of times, is that common sense and regulations don't go hand in hand. And the reason we say that is because you read one thing and you think about what it actually means to you, and it means something different. So, I mean, our goal ultimately is, I don't show up as a QSP, as a stormwater police officer. I show up to help the contractor be effective, see that his BMPs are working, and try to give him the easiest solution to his concerns, to be able to finish the product, because what he wants to do is just build the building and move on to the next project, which that's what we want him to do too. So
all right. Hey, well, we're out of time, but good news is we got another workshop starting at 9:30. Let me make sure I got my time right. Yeah, 9:30. And it's actually Mike and I again, and we're going to now go to our construction sandbox, which is just out back. Again, we got some film clips that we're going to show you. We're going to try to highlight some different BMPs, or at least talk about them from a different aspect. And so you won't want to miss that. But go get yourself some coffee, take a restroom break, and it'll be a different meeting. So log out of this one. This one will end, and it'll be the next meeting that you see on our Stormwater Awareness Week website. So we'll see you soon. All right. Talk to you later.
thanks. Goodbye.